At Kroger Pharmacy, care is what's most convenient for you. Care is being here when you need us. We're open evenings and weekends. Care is helping you save more. Most insurance plans and discount cards are accepted at your local Kroger Pharmacy. Care is saving you time by managing your prescriptions online. You can request refills, check order status, and more. Care is convenience that works for everyone. Kroger Health, a world of care is in store. Services and availability vary by location. Age and other restrictions may apply. For coverage, consult your health insurance company. Visit the pharmacy or our site for details.
Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
FunBelt Podcast.
FunBelt Podcast.
FunBelt Podcast.
FunBelt Podcast.
It's just a great conference that is at a point right now where I think clearly the best group of five conference in the country.
The state of Sunbelt football is the strongest in our history.
And we got to continue to showcase what our league's about.
This league is insane.
Yeah, it might be like one of those 8 wonders of the world.
And you can see just what a great group of five conference it really is.
It's a big deal.
Boy, life is looking pretty good in the Sunbelt these days.
The season rolls along on the FunBelt Podcast. It's a mess. Jeremy is still drunk, I think, from basking in his final D1 victory. Apparently, they have never won over another D1 opponent, and so he is still basking in glory of having a D1 victory.
The cure for all Red Wolves' woe, and it has been for the last 12 years, has been playing ULM. Thank you, Dusty, for helping me gain my swagger, help me retain my pompous attitude, because I was missing it. I was missing pompous, Jeremy. So if the Warhawks need any advice about playing the game of football, I watched the game. I could probably give Coach Terry Bowden some pointers. If you'd like to forward those for me, Dusty, I'd appreciate that. I'm sure he's waiting to see what I have to say, because he's probably wondering what happened, but only a keen, penetrating mind that would come from Arkansas State could possibly fathom what had happened on that day in Malone.
Ben, is it too late to replace Jeremy?
I think so. I think we may have to go to the bullpen pretty soon. Cut his mic.
That is offensive to say bullpen. It is now the arm barn.
It's the arm barn, and you know what?
It is the arm barn. Get it right.
I kind of like arm barn. I'm all right with that.
I think it's fantastic, actually. I love a good arm barn.
I think that's the dumbest thing ever, but who am I to say if a bull is offended by saying bullpen or not?
Oh, I don't care about the politics behind it.
That's because you're full of bull, though.
Oh, now I understand. You're feeling a little sensitive today, because I spent the weekend at Club Dub with Ben Moore. We had bottle service. There were dancing girls. There were celebrities. There was dancing. There were lights. There was high-fiving. And you weren't there, Dusty Thibodeau.
Nickelback does not count as a celebrity.
Oh, did you pop in? Did you have a cameo appearance at Club Dub last night?
No, when I was dumpster diving in the back, I saw them sneaking in.
Do they call that dubster diving?
Oh, geez.
Somebody likes Nickelback because they've sold, 80 million records. So I still haven't people, but somebody does.
The FunBelt podcast, we're all over the place. As Jeremy has alluded, week 11 happened, and Georgia State upset Coastal Carolina on the road. Tucker Gregg, 3 rushing touchdowns. Darian Granger, 2 passing touchdowns. It was an amazing game. I mean, I don't think that the Panthers really trailed. I think that they kind of dominated in all 3 phases of the game and went on the road for a huge win.
The Panthers did trail for about, 3 minutes at the beginning of the game. I saw Coastal Carolina. They immediately went down the field for a touchdown. I thought, here it is. This is Coastal Carolina doing things that Coastal Carolina usually does to people in Conway. The Panthers did not hesitate or back down at all. They came back with touchdowns of their own. And for a while there, they were just kind of trading haymakers. But really, you're right, Dusty. It looked like the Panthers were in control from top to finish. And people are like, oh, well, Grayson McCall, he wasn't there. It had nothing really to do with Grayson McCall. It had everything to do with the Panthers offense just pounding through what was considered to be a pretty good Coastal Carolina defense. They're at homecoming in Conway. That was a big win for that offense and that rushing and passing group for the Panthers. I don't think you can say that was because McCall wasn't there. McCall wasn't there, but he would have had I don't know if he could have done a better job than Carpenter.
Yeah, but Bryce Carver had opportunities. It came down to turnovers, right, boys? We talk about it every single week. You know, who wins the turnover battle, especially the Panthers have not turned the ball over at all and did not in Conway. They now moved to 3-0 in Brooks Stadium there. And I think it was another step forward for this Georgia State program that is playing basically their 12th overall season, 9th at the FBS level, to go get that victory over a ranked opponent. As you guys talked about as well too, you had Panthers had another 10-point lead. You had a 12-point lead against Auburn, 10-point lead against Louisiana, and it looked like here comes Coastal again. And Coach Elliott was ecstatic after the win, understanding what it meant. And the 2-headed monster of Jemias Williams and Tucker Gregg are certainly up there, I believe, with Cam Peoples and Nate Noel from App State as kind of the best 2-headed monsters, if you will, from a rushing attack. But I was really impressed with Darren Granger. He is a Conway, South Carolina native, so was quite literally playing in front of family and friends just minutes from where he grew up. So enormous game for Georgia State, now moved to 4-2 in the conference, not mathematically eliminated from the Sun Belt East spot. And they have 2 home games now to move forward and starting this weekend could grab bowl eligibility, which would be their 3rd straight bowl and 4th in 5 years under Sean Elliott. So enormous victory for the Panthers cannot certainly be understated, and looking forward to seeing what's next and how they build off this prosperity.
The Panthers started the season 1-4. The Panthers since then are now 4-1. Complete reversal of fortune. Got rid of some malcontents. Got a little lighter. Have Greg and Granger, kind of the Greg and Granger show out there. So it is a much better product now, and suddenly the Panthers are showing showing some fruition to that potential.
You mentioned the Sun Belt East. App State, they have sole possession of the East after beating South Alabama 31-7. No Jake Bentley at all. They trotted out Desmond Trotter. Not a bad debut. I mean, 226, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. But App State just too much. And especially at home, South Alabama, I think with Bentley had a slight chance, but I think that just going to Boone is too much for any team this late in the season. At one point there were all 10 Sun Belt programs, plus a few of the future Sun Belt programs were all on the gridiron at the same time yesterday or on Saturday. It was a madhouse to watch at times because there's so many games you can kind of ping pong back and forth. I ping ponged on this one a little bit too. That was one of those things where, the Jaguars have an incredible defense, and they kept them in that game for at least 2.5 quarters, where the Mountaineers really had trouble with them.
I don't think anybody is happier with that Georgia State win over Coastal Carolina than the Mountaineers right now. They suddenly have a clear path to the title. I know that Ben has stated that the Panthers have a mathematical chance to remain in, but right now it's really the Appalachian State Mountaineers for to lose. And they ever since that game where they got blown out by the Cajuns, they've really had a workman's attitude on the field. Really have come out there taking care of business. It hasn't always been very spectacular to watch. I mean, I don't watch a Mountaineers game expect to be entertained with big blowout plays, but they do find ways to do it on both sides of the ball. It took them a little bit to figure out that South Bama defense. They eventually figured it out, and in the fourth quarter, just sort of kind of ran away with it. Tempers ran high in that game. I know you probably saw some of the stories in that. I don't want to really touch on it because I don't know the facts around it, but that sounded pretty ugly.
It's South Alabama. Their players, again, started out 3-0. We've talked about it the last few weeks, and there were some kind of rising expectations as had some success there. And, they tried to go in and knock the bully off, right? You go into their place and try to knock them off. And offensively, just were challenged all day. I mean, the stat that popped out to me was 3 for 16 on third downs. Just continuing to give App State the ball over and over and over again. It's not a very good recipe for success. And tempers do run a little high, especially we've seen in the COVID year. You've got some super seniors that are back, the guys that want to win. They're still stuck at, 5 wins now. And trying to get that elusive 6th win to get bowl eligibility.
Georgia Southern picked up the win on the road at Texas State. Georgia Southern passed for 233 yards in that game. To me, the difference of that game, though, it was a weird play that happened. I believe it was in the fourth quarter. Texas State blocked a field goal attempt for the Eagles. Somehow they ruled that Texas State had recovered it and fumbled it. Thus, it gave Georgia Southern a new set of downs inside the Texas State 30. And that was the game-winning touchdown that gave Georgia Southern that win. Really weird series of plays. I didn't fully understand it. I didn't see the fumble even in all the replays there, but that was the true difference of the game.
Of all the games that were played on Saturday, and there were a lot of them, I never got to check in on that Georgia Southern Texas State game, but it sounded like a lot of interesting things happened in that game. And it sounded to be that a lot of it was just a big old mess. If anybody here has seen the game and can explain how Texas State ends up losing it, because I know that chatter on the Twitters was like, I don't understand how we lost this game. We should have, or the Bobcats are like, we should have won the game. We had it won so many times. And yet it's Georgia Southern that comes away with the win. Somebody explain that. Ben Moore, please explain what happened.
I had my eye on it. I was following the score, did not watch it live like you guys. But I agree. Weird things have seemed to happen and befall Sunbelt officials. It is certainly not a job that people are diving on to jump in there and become officials at the FBS level. It did sound like a judgment call. There's a lot of folks certainly in San Marcos that weren't very happy with that result at all. Really, it's 2 bad football teams that just looked like defense was at times optional, and then of course the special teams play there. Just kind of a weird finish, but Southern is able to escape and get on the charter jet back to Statesboro with a victory.
If you don't run the ball, you can't win the game, and we saw that again with Louisiana Lafayette beating Troy. Gunnar Watson, 350 yards passing. The aerial attack there for the Trojans was on fire. 41 yards rushing. You're not going to win.
Yeah, you know what? As a citizen of the Red Wolves Nation, I've seen that failure again and again, where you have to be well balanced on both sides of the offense to make an offense work. Watson did. He looked pretty good. He was making some plays. But in true Cajuns fashion, now the Cajuns end up winning by a couple touchdowns, I believe, at the end there. But in true Cajuns fashion, it always feels like they're just conserving energy. They're like the Jim Brown of the Sun Belt, where they slowly get up and don't and kind of take their time to the huddle, and then they come out with a touchdown, with a burst of speed. So there's something just completely unfancy about Louisiana, and you kind of think, once again, I noticed that the playoff selection committee has completely ignored the Sun Belt, have completely ignored one-loss Louisiana, even though they remembered them last season. And I think part of it is simply because the Cajuns cannot win in spectacular fashion. Instead of posting a 50-0 score on some of these chumps, they're willing to let guys in. Heck, they've let the Red Wolves play them tight. They let a couple of other teams play them tight. So, excuse me?
Nicholls State.
Oh, yeah. Nicholls State, for instance, they played them tight. So, I mean, there's something about this Cajuns team that seems to dominate, but also seems to do it in a fashion that's just unconvincing. And even the only big win they had, a big blowout win, was against Appalachian State. And they're looking for some payback.
Yeah, there's no question. We've talked about it really since August that Troy has kind of continuously been offensively challenged, and the running game and offensive line just has not been able to generate anything, and pretty disappointing, quite candidly, with seeing Vidal. I mean, he was one of the star freshmen in the league in 2020, kind of the breakout guy, and he just has not been able to get going. If you make just about any team one-dimensional in college football, especially today, you're in deep trouble, and the Cajuns were able to do that. We're able to pick off a Gunnar Watson pass there, and as you mentioned, just kind of be on cruise control. It's been it's almost like they're just kind of going through the motions here the last few weeks of the season, setting that up now that it's official that they will be hosting the Sun Belt title game.
The finale. Jeremy's already smiling and gloating.
Huh? What? I kind of forgot about this game. Who is it? Is it
Arkansas State kicked a late field goal for the 27-24 victory over ULM. 12th straight win for the Red Wolves in the series.
12 straight? Wow. That's a lot.
Quarterback Rhett Rodriguez made his return for the Warhawks.
Surprise!
160 yards and 1 touchdown, but wasn't really effective, I guess is the best way to say it. The running game was there with Malik Jackson, a converted receiver to running back, knowing that the running back position has been kind of thin for the Warhawks. 176 yards, 2 TDs on his debut as a running back. Lane Hatcher, 444 yards. And again, Corey Rutger goes for over 100 yards against the Warhawks. I think last year, what was the final tally, like 600, 700 yards?
He had 300 yards last year and 4 touchdowns. So this was like a bad game for him against the Warhawks. So, yeah, what was fun about that game, at least for the Red Wolves, was that the defense looked pretty competent. And there's nothing more, heartbreaking or spiritually demeaning than seeing your team just get pushed around on the defensive side of the ball again and again and again. But ever since having 50 put up by them on Coastal Carolina, that defense really has found ways to sort of make the game manageable. And it came down to a head against the Warhawks, who surprisingly did have Rodriguez behind center for most of the time. I don't mean to question any of the coaching staff or their decisions. I kind of thought that was a mistake. I mean, you had a guy who was pretty hot. Maybe you should have stuck with him. He seems like more of a dual threat. Rodriguez at times made some good passes, but it wasn't quite enough. Now, I did enjoy that converted running back. Malik Jackson? Was that
Malik?
Yeah. He rattled off a 75-yard, one play, one touchdown against Arkansas State, which was very dispiriting to open the second half. But for the Arkansas State Red Wolves, it was a good game. It was good to get off that schneid. Nobody is using this season or using victories as a measuring stick anymore for the Red Wolves when it comes to this season. But it was good to have that win. And I have to admit, Ben Moore, there's some moxie coming into Atlanta when Arkansas State faces the Panthers later this week. There's a little bit of moxie. You might want to look out because we got moxie.
You got something, and very interested to see the worst defense and worst rushing defense live and in person, catching the Panther Express right in the face for 4 straight quarters. I think the Panthers could run the ball 60 times and on Saturday. Jeremy, get ready for old man football. But yeah, just to close the book on Arkansas State and ULM. I mean, ultimately, this is really the times where the coaches want to see who's still in it, right? They want to see who's playing, who's not just checked out waiting for next year. I know Arkansas State, even after I think I've seen it today, a few guys have already jumped in the transfer portal, looking to move on. So you're seeing some attrition happen, whether it's forced or not. And I know that's kind of the dirty word around college football. Most coaches are being pretty realistic about some guys that won't be back. So it was good to see. And I know Jeremy certainly enjoying the win. As you mentioned, death, taxes, and Arkansas State beating the Warhawks of Louisiana Monroe.
I was just happy to have that opportunity to give 110%. So, good for Thibodeau and his little team. They played the best that they could under pressing circumstances. I have hats off to them for keeping the score close.
I'm so proud of you for getting a D1 win this season.
I'm so happy.
If you were here with me, I would give you a hug, Jeremy, because you deserve
that hug. Gladly accepted.
This week, man, the season's winding down. We only got 2 weeks left. The game that I'm most excited about this upcoming weekend, App State traveling to Troy for a 2:30 kickoff. Troy wins. They get bowl eligible. App State has got to win if they want to still hold on to the East, knowing that Georgia State has somewhat of a gimme game against the Red Wolves this upcoming Saturday.
Oh.
And so I like the Trojans in this one.
You know what? I don't like the Trojans simply because they can't score. But, I think Appalachian State closes with Georgia Southern. So I don't know. I don't feel like they're looking ahead to that game, being what Georgia Southern is. I really think they will be focusing on Troy. Troy will be a good defense to play against. Troy will, kind of on par with South Alabama, will be another one of those games where Appalachian State's going to have to figure out that Rubik's Cube. I think maybe it was good for them to play South Alabama before playing Troy because they get that knock in the nose out of the way. So I don't have the same enthusiasm for this game as you do, Dibs. I understand why you do, but I really think Appalachian State's in business mode right now. I think they just walk through these next 2 games without much trouble.
Yeah, they don't turn the ball over. That's the biggest thing, and it's been certainly on App State like there has been some discipline, there has been some penalties, there has been some turnovers, but I just think it comes down to App State having enough firepower to move by them. But I kind of lean Dusty's way. It could be close. Troy is very opportunistic and. But just again, you can't be one dimensional against App, man. You got to have some balance, and I think I can see App State covering that 10-point spread that I see on my screen right now.
The game that I'm most intrigued about, Louisiana Lafayette goes to Liberty, and Liberty's favored by 4.5. I don't know what Liberty's status is. And is this the Liberty of early in the year or what's been on the field these past few weeks?
Ever since Liberty lost to ULM, great game, by the way. Hey, good game, Dusty. Good game.
That was a D1 win. Huh?
Yes, it was. But ever since that game, Liberty's just been put into some kind of phantom zone. Nobody talks about Liberty. No one gives a crap about Hugh Freeze. The quarterback, I always forget his name.
Malik Willis.
Willis. Yep. He was a hot commodity for about the first 4 games of the season. I haven't heard much from him since that time. He's all but invisible. And yet I feel like this could be the game for the Cajuns if they want to crack that top 25 that is for shits and giggles, for pride, would be good for the Sun Belt. They need to beat this Liberty team. And I can kind of see Cajun sort of looking past it, saying, "Oh, looking past to ULM because they want to beat ULM. I think they want to be perfect in conference. I think they want to go ahead and walk into that championship game, leaving no doubt. I could see them overlooking Liberty. That being said, I've personally put a little bit of money on Cajuns to win because I feel like that 4 points is an awfully strange spread.
Yeah, I think it's almost a sucker bet, and I could absolutely see it dropping it a touch, closer to kickoff on Saturday. I think we've been talking about the last few weeks. Louisiana just kind of been sleepwalking through there. That they're going to have a legitimate test and a legitimate quarterback that they're going to face that can do a lot of things both with his arm and his legs. So I think it's a fascinating game and a true, another resume, opponent basically there for the Sunbelt. We've talked about there has been non-conference opportunities this season that have come up a little bit short for the league. This would be certainly a good punch to Liberty, and from some of the bowl projections, we may see Liberty again against one of the bowl opponents here in December as well. So very interested to see how that result plays out.
Good transition there, Ben. The latest projections have Coastal Carolina going down to see our friend Doug Mosley at the Boca Raton Bowl against UAB. I like that matchup.
Uh-huh.
The Cure Bowl in Orlando has App State and Liberty. The Lending Tree Bowl, Central Michigan and Troy. The NOLA Bowl, which is my favorite matchup right there, of Marshall and Louisiana Lafayette. And then the Camellia Bowl of Georgia State and Eastern Michigan. As we peek ahead to 2022, some interesting games are on the schedule. Obviously, the Appalachian State returns to Marshall. Coastal Carolina will go to Virginia. Georgia State, they have a trip to South Carolina, host North Carolina and Charlotte. That's some good games there. ULM will go to Texas and Alabama. Arkansas State goes to Memphis. Louisiana Lafayette has Rice, which is big, knowing that that's going to be an AAC team, as well as Florida State. South Alabama, though, they host your Louisiana Tech Bulldogs.
Oh, yeah.
The one that I thought was most interesting is just also kind of peeking at the four schools coming in. Marshall goes to Notre Dame, which is like a place to me I've always wanted to see a game at. And then especially if I was covering the game and could be on the field for all that, would be absolutely phenomenal.
All right.
Old Dominion goes to Eastern Carolina. They have Liberty and Virginia Tech coming to town. Virginia Tech recently fired their coach. One of the leading candidates could be Billy Napier from Louisiana Lafayette.
And could Jamie Chadwell be a guy too? I mean, East Coast guy? I don't know. Yeah, there's going to be
He grew up in the mountains in Tennessee. So he's, I think, about 260 miles. I think I mapped it today, where Chadwell's from. So knows that area well. Very interested to see what Virginia Tech does there. But you're right. Napier is a guy that could be attractive. And with Clemson kind of taking a step back, and Florida State and Miami, not exactly, Florida State and Miami of old. Could that be an opportunity for Napier to step in there?
The school I wasn't real impressed with their future schedule was James Madison. The most exciting game they had next year is going to be a trip to Louisville, a game that I think they would legitimately have a decent shot of competing in. But really, if you look at their future schedules, just a lot of FCS schools. So it makes you think, what's the buyout of that? Or how are they going to get out of those contracts, knowing that they're about to have to redo all those schedules to accommodate the Sun Belt?
Yeah, that's a good question. How do you get that in there? Do you just make deals with the independents out there and hope that somebody has an opening, or do you sacrifice yourself on the altar of some P5 people who are trying to look for a body bag game? I don't know. That's a fun question. We should get somebody from JMU's office to tell us of that.
I know in the contract, specifically when Georgia State moved to the Sun Belt from FCS, from the Colonial, there are riders in the contract that basically say if either they either school moves, because Georgia State was scheduled to play Savannah State, for example. So Savannah State dropped from FCS to Division II, which wouldn't have counted. So that basically was a shake hand agreement. You move forward. Now, there may be some financial involved, just depending on how it's written, or it may be dropped completely. But you're right. I mean, JMU is going to have to scramble for some games here. They may have to load up on some FCS as they make the transition.
All the talk of football, but there's stuff going on the hardwood. And as we speak, guys, South Alabama is beating number 14 Alabama by 5 points.
South Alabama has a good squad.
USA.
Mm-hmm.
Last week were some other good games. Louisiana Lafayette beat Southern Miss, just big over the kind of short term of Sunbelt versus Conference USA, but then also kind of giving you a glimpse of what Southern Miss brings to the table for basketball.
Peer conference win.
Players and double-digit scoring. The big win last week, though, for the men was Georgia Southern beating South Florida 53-41.
Yeah, I saw that score and was a little bit puzzled. Is Georgia Southern going to have a good basketball team this year?
Well, they played the worst team in the AAC, and a former Georgia Tech head coach Brian Gregory, who that result certainly won't help his job security there in Tampa. Georgia Southern was 500 last year in the COVID shortened year, 13-13. They have a second-year head coach who was assistant coach at Texas Tech. I am still very interested to see what they look like in come December and even January. But they have an aggressive non-conference schedule. That was certainly a good win for the league. Not sure how they're going to fare, but I think they're going to be on the lower tier of the league. I just don't know how talented they are from top to bottom.
Arkansas State, big win against Central Baptist College last night. I don't know if you guys checked in on that.
They are currently on the Bayou right now, losing 22-13.
What, Central Baptist College?
Yes.
Sorry.
ULM is playing Champion Christian College.
Yeah.
My apologies there.
Not the same school, Dusty.
I think they just played a Sunbelt school, though, too, like a couple nights ago. So they're making the Sunbelt rounds. Championship Christian, whoever they are.
Dollar bills, y'all.
On the women's side, Georgia Southern is the hot team right now, having beaten Auburn. They picked up another non-conference win as well that I, of course, didn't make a note of. But Little Rock went to Nashville and beat Vanderbilt by 16 points. The Trojans never trailed.
Foley knows what he's doing. He's a good coach of basketball, and you know what? I remember I got onto a show like that discussed Sunbelt here in Little Rock, and I was sort of ambushed by the host who said, "Let's talk Sunbelt women's basketball." And quite frankly, I wasn't really following. So I didn't have anything to say about Sunbelt basketball. I really feel like I should do a better job at following women's basketball in the Sunbelt because it can be very entertaining. I catch a few women's Red Wolves games, and they're always just good basketball to watch. I don't even know who's projected this season to be really good in women's basketball this year. Can you guys help me out with that?
T. Roy.
Yeah,
Troy?
Troy's going to be strong. Yeah.
All right.
But yeah, we're just rocking and rolling along with the season, man. I'm excited that basketball's coming up. I'll be attending some Sunbelt Conference basketball games. Texas State will come to Rice here in a couple of weeks, so get to see our former show guest there of Terrence Johnson live and in person with last season's Sunbelt Conference champion Bobcats, not Boobcats, Jeremy. Bobcats.
No, in basketball, they've earned their single O. Yeah. Hey, I do have a little bit of women's basketball information to pass along in regards to Arkansas State. On Friday, for the first time since sometime in the 90s, when the two programs were matched up in a postseason NIT tournament, the University of Arkansas and the Red Wolves will be playing basketball on the same court together on Friday in Jonesboro at the FunBelt Stadium, which is a really big deal if you live in Arkansas, because that wasn't ever supposed to happen. But it is happening. Arkansas is slowly playing in-state teams. They haven't played A-State basketball, or they are scheduled to play Arkansas State football in the year 2025. So this is sort of a big deal in a historical context. Arkansas State women are actually playing really well. They kind of dipped into the transfer portal, picked up some size and shooting that they needed, have had a pretty good start, have a 1 loss to Oklahoma, but then they beat McNeese State, I think, yesterday. So this should be a fun game between A-State and Arkansas. And I'm tempted to jump into the Jeremy Mobile and drive and see that.
Is that like the Peter Copter of Family Guy?
Yeah. It's more like Kit from Knight Rider. It talks, it does little boost jumps. It's really cool.
Bad visions. This week also, we get to lift some hardware, guys. It's volleyball championship week, which starts on a Thursday and runs through the weekend. Winner of the tournament gets a NCAA bid into the regionals, with South Alabama and Texas State being the favorites right there on the East and the West. Jeremy, you look lost, like you've never seen volleyball.
There was a time when Arkansas State was a very solid volleyball program. Then the coach left for Houston. And ever since then, the program's really suffered. So I don't expect A-State to do very well. I hope so, because I do like a strong volleyball team. But yeah, it doesn't look good for Arkansas State. And the two programs that you mentioned are very strong. I know Texas State is a very strong volleyball program. I love to see them actually compete well in the NCAA.
Texas State looking for their 4th straight championship.
You know what we haven't discussed, Thibodeau? I feel like you're dancing around it.
I like dancing.
Yeah, but this seems like a nervous dance. Like you don't want to quite dig into this. But ULM is playing LSU this weekend. Am I correct?
That is correct.
Well,
and they will be playing in the magical white helmets, purple tops, and white pants.
Oh, okay.
Which is the same the same attire that they wore. I think it was in 2013, 2014, somewhere in there, where it was a 10-0 game at the half, and I think ULM lost 31-0 overall in the game, I think was the final.
Well, are we going to see a similar performance? Or will we see the sort of Mr. Hyde version of ULM that just comes out and scares the crap out of somebody?
I think, and everyone's going to laugh.
Okay.
And hardy har har, and
I'm not going to laugh at you, Tim.
Jovial.
I will not laugh.
I think the
Warhawks. You have to say.
I think the Warhawks split these final 2 games, but I couldn't tell you which game they actually win.
Well, you got ULM, and then you've got Louisiana. So you've got 2 huge in-state contests between some pretty tough competition. But if I had to choose between the one that you're going to win, I would say that you have a better chance beating LSU, because LSU seems like a team in disarray. LSU seems like a team that can be beat. LSU feels like an upset in the making. Tell me if I'm wrong. Ben Moore, back me up on this.
Yeah, I think LSU wins by 3 touchdowns.
Which is good, because it's a 29-point spread. So
I don't know. You know what? I tell you what, if you start the correct quarterback, I think you have a good chance. I really do.
That was definitely the hot topic on the message boards this week, is why was Rhett Rod in there over Chandler Rogers and everything else? And it got kind of ugly.
Yeah, I don't go to message boards for cheery repartee. That's for sure. You're not going to find any positive messages on the message board. That's for sure. But there's also another game you've kind of glossed over, Dusty. a game that maybe has significant impact on the Sun Belt itself, one that will shock the world in the way it's played, in its sort of excellent football that's going to be out on full display on ESPN3. And I'm talking about the Red Wolves versus Georgia State.
No, Panthers roll.
No,
roll, baby, roll. The line is ever increasing. I think it's last check it was 16.5 favoring the home Panthers.
Yes, I give you that the Panthers do have a good rushing attack, and I will give you that your quarterback,
Darren Granger,
Power Ranger. Granger is not without his talent. He's very good, but I will say this: the defense is still a little bit leaking oil. That there is a lot of opportunity to score against the Panthers. The Panthers gave up something like 200 yards of offense on the ground against Carolina, gave up a similar amount in the air, so it's like an equal amount. If you can find a well-balanced attack against the Panthers and find some way to bottle up Granger, you may have an opportunity to beat a hungover Georgia State.
Yeah, I don't think so, my friend. I think the Panthers smell the bowl game. It's right there in front of them to grab. It'll be a home game, and it's Veteran Appreciation Weekend. So they're all folks in uniform will get in, and should be a good crowd there at Center Park Stadium. But should be good. And the venerable bend but don't break defense that we keep hearing about, where defensive backs will give you 7, 8, 9 yards, but just not let you score.
But the Panthers have given up 18 touchdowns in the air. I predict that they add 6 more on Saturday.
You're crazy.
I am drunk with power.
And for everyone listening at home, so when we're doing the recording, we have cameras just so that we can play off each other and cue off one another. Ben has turned off his camera, I think, because he is crying from laughing so hard at these bold, brash, crazy, delusional Red Wolf predictions that Jeremy.
I predict 250 yards on the ground for the Red Wolves. It's going to be a breakout ground game.
Have that on the season.
Yeah, I don't see that happening, Jeremy.
Right,
sorry, but not coastal. They're not apt.
That might not happen. But Ben,
I don't think Auburn ran for 150 yards against them.
Oh, what, you comparing the Red Wolves to Auburn? Auburn, I've never even heard of those guys. Red Wolves, that's where it's at. So if I were you, I wouldn't be preparing for Auburn, Ben Moore. I'd be preparing for the Red Wolves. In fact, I wouldn't even bother preparing for the Red Wolves. Chalk that up as a loss for you guys. Try to get that 6th win against who do you got next week?
Troy.
If I were you, I'd be preparing for Troy because that's going to be your make or break game.
There's confidence, and then there's Jeremy.
Yes, that is where I was headed. And Dusty, I appreciate you grabbing that from me.
No, you know what? All seriousness, that rushing attack is very good for Georgia Panthers. I think you said they were 14th. I saw somewhere where the 18th. Let's split this difference. Say it's the 16th best rushing offense. We do talk about Appalachian State's combo of Noel and Peoples a lot. We don't give enough credit to Greg and Jam, as you like to call him. Jam and Greg are just two scary running backs. That you're right. If you guys ran it for 60 times on Saturday, I think you guys have a pretty good day.
Parting shots, plugs, and promos. Jeremy, fire away.
Look for Hellraiser for a more sedated preview of Arkansas State versus Georgia State. Our good friend Ben Moore has a quote in there, so you want to see what he has to say about what it would take for the Red Wolves to beat the Panthers on Saturday.
Ben?
Yeah, PantherTalk.com. We have the wicked crossover right now between basketball actually taking place currently as we record this fair podcast. The men's soccer team is in the NCAA tournament, repping the MAC conference, still waiting Sunbelt men's soccer to return. And then, of course, Saturday, the big Jeremy versus Ben face-to-face there. Looking forward to that result and the amount of messages that will be flying there here at 2:00 Eastern time. So we'll have it shaking and baking and covering, and looking forward to the Panthers getting bowl eligible.
There's going to be bare-chested, fist-balled tweeting going on Saturday. I'm looking forward to it.
I'm not looking forward to the Warhawks and LSU starting at 8:00 Saturday night. I definitely got to have a nap before that game to make sure that I make it to the game.
Prime time.
Other than that, guys, Warhawk Report, getting ready for the December signing day. Other than that, guys, we have 2 shows next week.
What?
We will be talking on Monday with Rachel Quigley of the Myrtle Beach Bowl.
Oh, Quigley.
And then on Tuesday, normal show. Another programming note, guys. Once football season is over, basically at the beginning of December, we'll be shifting to a Sunday night recording available that Sunday night or Monday. But that way we kind of have that good, clean break that there just really isn't in college basketball, since they seem to play every night, it seems like. So that'll give us a chance to kind of have a stopping point to refer back to and look ahead to. So again, starting in December, we'll move to a Sunday night recording. So for Dusty Thibodeau, Warhawk Report, Ben Moore, Panther Talk, and Jeremy Harper with Howraiser, we thank you much, and we will talk to you twice next week.
Check engine light on? Take the guesswork out of your check engine light with O'Reilly Veriscan. It's free. Ask for O'Reilly Veriscan today.